Alright, so you can see my page, right?
Yes.
Alright, so for today we are going to basically talk about HTML forms. It's going to be a very, very short class, so we'll just round up pretty soon, hopefully. Alright, so basically, HTML forms is a way that we get data from the user. It's just like when you want to log into Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or a random website, right? You go
Uh,
through the sign up page, you go through the probably login page and all of that. That form that you fill where you put your email or your password is an input field, is what we call a HTML form. It's derived from a HTML form. Let's check an example. Let me see if I can see something like no will I use now?
Facebook.
Facebook. Okay. Facebook.com. Okay. So this thing that you see here is generated using a using um, a HTML form, right? So whenever
Yes.
we use forms, there are different types of HTML form controls. We have input, we have text area, we have the select, we have different kinds depending on what we want to get. It's just like when you want to send a message, probably reply to a message on probably any platform. We use a text area that where you can type much more data into, like where you have more space to type in more words. Like, okay, for example, I don't know if you have a GitHub account, but you can go to any website and they will tell you to enter your bio or tell us more about yourself. You get that area
Yes.
is made up of a text, is made with a text area. So let's start here. I'm going to have a div, which is normal, and we're going to have a another div. This one is going to be Clinton. Are you here?
Yes, ma'am. Good evening.
Good evening. So sorry we are like starting this class very, very late. Normally it's going to be 12. I just had emergencies today. That's why it's an evening class. Sorry about that, guys. Alright, so getting back to what we are doing, we are going to have two divs. Here we'll add a class attribute of container. This is our container. Here we are going to have another class attribute that we're going to call the box. Form box. This is the one that will contain the form itself. And then here we're going to have the actual form. Form is an element. So once you type in form, this is what comes out. I'll redo this again. Once you type in form and hit enter, this is what comes out. So this form here is what tells this HTML, okay, we want this to be in a form way, or if I can put it like that, we want you to give us a form. So if you want to get anything or get input from a user, you make use of this form. So we are going to have a div that carries what we call the input. So input now is, why is what is wrong with it? It says okay, it has no title, so let's add a title. This is going to have input, right?
Yeah.
So let's see this on our browser and go live. Oh, I would love this to show. I love this to show somewhere else. Let me stop this from showing. Copy file path. I want to use this browser instead. Command G and hit enter. So this is what we have. And if you notice, this is basically plain. It doesn't give you anything. It doesn't really tell you what to do, how to do it. If you see this thing on a browser, it's just basic, right? It doesn't give you any information. So if you go to that Facebook, you're going to see something like email address. This gives you an idea that, okay, they want me to either add my email address or a phone number, right? So in order to be able to achieve this, we use what we call what is known as a placeholder. So just like we have a title attribute here, we have a type attribute. Here we're going to have a placeholder attribute, and in there we're going to type what we want the user to give us. So if we want the user to give us their first name, for example, first name, and we go back here and hit enter, we're going to have first name here. Can you see it? This is what we call a placeholder. Or we can do it this way. We can add a label. A label can be used in place of a placeholder. We can just add here first name. And when we add first name, sorry, I didn't spell that correctly. First name, we go back, hit enter. You see that this one tells us, okay, we want first name there. So you can either do it this way or you do it this way. So we can get rid of this placeholder we have here and make use of the label alone for here, or you can have the placeholder, whichever one works. So it's a choice thing. Next, we can also have another input that takes in email, and here we will have a placeholder instead, and we have enter email address, or just enter email, right? When we go back, you see that it has enter email, and here if you enter anything and hit enter, it goes. You don't have any issues. Normally, if I go to this page, if you're trying to enter an email address, right, you're supposed to have at probably yahoo.com, at gmail.com, at whatever.com, hotlink or hotmail or whatever.com. But here we did not add it, and still this thing didn't throw an error. The reason why it didn't do that is because we did not specify the type here. So if we want to use an email, this type here will change to email. This is where you specify the type of input you want to get from the user. So here, if it's just a random text, a first name, a last name, or just random text that doesn't really need anything, you can use text. But when it comes to emails, phone numbers, different things, or like a select or something, you specify it. So in this case, we have what we call an email. So if you go back now, reload this and write whatever you want and go out. Okay, it's supposed to give me, wait, let me check another div. Input, and say probably a phone number this time. Phone number. What am I doing? Placeholder and phone number. Okay, so let's see. So if I put something here and leave it, it's supposed to give me, supposed to like pop up a notification. Okay, please include, can you see this now? It says please include an @ in the email address. So this is supposed to give you like an error message telling you that whatever you wrote here does not match what you've given it. Here also is if you want to type in a phone number, you make use of number, right? And here
Yeah.
you're going to see that this thing appears giving you 1 2 3 4 5 6. So if I try to put a character here that is not a number, like probably W or F or G or H or anything, it won't go through. But when I write a number, it goes in. When you try to write an alphabet, it won't go in except E, because E is a mathematical alphabet or something. But it says it still gives you that message, please enter a number. So these are like specifications of what we want to achieve. But let me go ahead and style this so that it looks a bit better, because it's looking really scattered. I'll still add a, probably let me add a label here and leave these ones as, like, leave this placeholder for the rest. But I'll add a title so that this error message doesn't give us an issue. And here I'm going to add a label, and I'm going to have here email, right? Yes, so that goes in there. So let's go to our index.css and style this. First of all, we're going to link it here like we always do, which is our external styling. Remember we talked about internal styling, inline styling, and external styling. So this is an external styling. So
I,
to,
I, I have a question.
what is your question?
What if you want to add everything together? For example, special character, a number and a text. Sorry, yes, a number and a text in one place. How do you do it?
If you want to add it, you will just leave this type as text. You won't give you will not rename this type to email or number, because this causes restrictions. But when it comes to text, you can add anything, like this one that has text, which is the first one. I can add this, I can add a number, I can add a special character, I can add anything I want, you get? So if you want to get anything, you just leave it as text. Alright, so let's add, I'm still going to touch more on some of these things. Let me just style it a bit so that it looks presentable. So this is index.css. So when we go to our index page, let's first of all style our container. So I'm going to have dot container. You guys remember how to get this, right? This is what we call a class selection. Chemere, do you remember?
Yeah.
You do. You remember that, okay, if we want to select, for example, this form, if we just come to this point, and write form, what type of selection is this? What's the difference between this one and this one? Can you remember?
It's used for
Okay,
I forgot to sorry.
all right. Clinton, can you help?
No.
You can't. You've forgotten. All right. In our last class, we talked about different types of CSS selectors. This is a type selector. Type selectors is just the tag name itself, the element itself. When you talk about dot, we have the selector being class selector. This class here will be class selector. If it's an ID, we are going to use ID and probably name it container. And then if I want to select it using container, I'll have hash container. This is an ID selector, this is a class selector, and this is a type selector. Do you guys understand?
Yes.
I'll still go back to talk about selectors, but for now let's continue with what we are doing, and I'll work mostly with these ones for now. Probably in our next class we'll just go over selectors again and run through them. Okay, so our container would have a width of probably 50%, and then we're going to have a border of 1 pixel, 2 pixel, solid, hash 000. This is black, this is hexadecimal or hexa something for selecting. Let me just use black instead so that I won't get confused. So if I go back and reload this, why is it not showing? Border 1
But
pixel.
you did not link it though.
I did. I linked it. Probably I just corrected something. I made a mistake. I added an extra 2 pixels here. That's why it didn't work the first time. Okay. So this is how it is now. Let me give it a padding. Padding moves things away from the border. Padding shifts things away inside. Margin is used to move things outside. So let me give it a padding. Padding of 10 pixels. Let's see how it looks like. So this is how it looks like now. I'm just going to give it a margin to move it to the center. 30 pixels auto. So when I do this, it's now in the center. Let me give this a title. So in this, at this point, I'll give this a H3, for example, and I'll say HTML forms, right? And it's in here. I can add text align center. Let's select H3. In the case of H3, I'll be using a type selector because that's the only H3 on the page. If I wanted to probably style more than one H3, if I had it, I might add an ID or a class selector. Do you get me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So I want to bring it to the center. So I'm going to give it a property of text align and give it a value of center. If I go back to reload it, it's now in the center, right? So the next thing I want to do is style this. The first thing I did was style this container, this one carrying everything. Then the next thing I want to style is this one that is carrying the form itself, this form box. So let me go back and I'll say dot container dot form box. If you hover on this, it says that you should find an element that has the name container, and inside of that element find another element that has a class name of form box. That means that inside of this container you would find this form box, and that is exactly what we have here. This form box is inside of this container. I can easily write form box alone, right? Or I can
Okay.
I can add the parents and add the child. It's a choice thing, but most times this is the appropriate way to write it, especially when you're dealing with multiple pages that may have this form box but doesn't have this container. That's just an example. With time you get used to these things. So I'm also going to give this one a weight and say a weight of probably 70%, right? And I'm going to say um I'm going to say um, margin 10 pixel auto for it to be in the center. And then if I give it a border, I'll say 1 pixel solid tail. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, this is what we have, and I can give it a padding of 10 pixels, and then boom, this is how it looks now. So the next thing I want to style is this stuff. So I'm going to go to the div. Okay, so if I have input, so let me make use of div instead, or just input, since all of them are the same. I can say dot container dot form box div. This div here is a type selector. This form box is a class selector. You can make use of multiple types of selector in one row. So if I hover over this, it says first of all look for an element with the class name of container. Inside of it you will find another element with the class name of form box. That is where you now find a div, right? And this div is like, for example, this is the container, this is the form box, and this is the div, and we have div and div. So whatever property I add to that particular div is going to affect all of these divs, right? So I'm going to have input, and all the divs here, they contain input and input. And if you notice here, this input here, it's also a type selector because it doesn't have a hash, neither does it have a full stop like what I wrote before, hash container or dot container. It doesn't have anyone, just like this div as well, and this h3. Once there's no symbol in front of it, you know it's a type selector in most cases. So I'm going to give it a width of 100% for the input. So this is how it looks like now. This is the input field. This box is the input field. It's taking 100% of its parent, 100% of this container, and it's shifting from this one because I gave this thing a padding, so the padding is moving it. So let me say I'm going to give it a margin, and I'll give it a margin of probably 10 pixels. This margin will move it around. Let's see. Margin bottom instead. Margin bottom is just so that it's going to have space under it. Before, without this margin bottom, they were joining together, right? You see that there was no space here and there was no space here. But with the margin bottom now, there is a space under. So this one was done with a placeholder and this one was done with a label. It's a choice thing. And if you start writing, the placeholder disappears. Here, the placeholder disappears, right? So you can either do it this way or this way, though the most conventional way is using a label, but you can also do it this way. I just wanted to give you multiple ways to go about it. All right. So the next thing I want to do to this is give it a padding because it's looking very small. Probably a padding of 20 pixels. Let's see how it looks like. Okay, it's too big. And I don't know why this thing is moving out of the container. Padding of 10 pixels. Why is it moving outside the container? Let me see why. Inspect. How many minutes do I have? Oh, after 8 already. Let me see why it's moving outside the container. Okay. Alright. Okay. Why is it moving outside the container? Okay. It seems the form itself doesn't have a width. Let me give this form let me give the form itself, this form here, this particular form, not form box or container, this form now, I can say since it's inside of these two, I can come down here and say form width of 100%. Let's see if that will fix our issue. Can you see form here? I selected using a type selector as well. So if I go back, it's still like that. Must be a problem. Must be a problem. But let me get rid of this border so that we can go ahead with this. Later on, I'll find out what the issue is. All right, so let's continue. Let me get rid of this one too. So it looks a bit presentable now. It's not as wonderful as anything, but it's manageable. Let me get rid of this too. So this is what we have for now. So here we have what we call password, and if you notice, this password comes in this form, right? It comes in this form. So to be able to achieve that, what we are going to do is we are going to create another div, right? And we are going to say input, and we are going to give it a placeholder password. Okay. And then here that has this text will have password, right? So if you go back to our forms, we are going to have password, and when we type in, it's going to come out in that form. If we change this back to text, when we load our page again and come back here, we type in, it's going to come out as text. So this type here tells it we want it to show as a password, and that's what we have. So we've also seen like web pages where you're asked to select country, the type of country, or which particular country you're from. So to be able to do that, yes, your location. To be able to do that, we don't use this input now. We use what we call select, right? Just like we have a UL on ordered list and ordered list, this select is a type of form control, and inside of it is going to have what we call option. Option is just like the list, just like we have, for example, we have UL, and inside of it we have LI, right? So this is like the UL and this is like the LI. So whatever we want to write, you write it inside this option and duplicate it multiple times. So that's an example. So here, what is it saying? Select must have an accessible name. Alright, just add select. What is that problem? Has no title attribute. Let's write title so that you can forgo this error message here. So title select. Right. So this one has option of Nigeria, and I'm going to copy this and paste it multiple times. and change here to probably Ghana, here to Berlin, here to Zimbabwe. Okay, so this value here is mostly for server side. You can still add something there. It doesn't really matter what you add there. It's just like you don't need it now in this case, but you can just decide to add anything there. So it's like a choice to leave it open or not. For now, you don't really need to add anything there. So if you go back here now, you're going to see that we have here Nigeria, and if you click on it, you see other options that we have there. So this is how to select whichever one you want. This is the way that country list is made. Are you following?
Yes.
All right. So sometimes you might not just see the country itself. You might just see an empty space or something that says um
Select country.
yes, select country. So the very first one is what you're going to have as that select country. And then when you go back and reload it, you're going to see select country. And when you click on it, you see that. Or you can have an empty space here, and then you're going to have what we call a label, just like that, and you're going to have select country, right? Select country. When you go back and reload this, you're going to have select country, and if you notice there's nothing here because in this very first option you did not add anything. So if you go back and click it, you're going to see that it's empty, and then others follow. So there are multiple ways to work with HTML. Just whichever way suits you, you go along with it. So I want to style this so that it will look like this. I'll go back to this point. Now we are working with select. Others were input, right? So I'll go back. I want to have this same thing and duplicate it. C, V, and then inside here I'll have select, and it's a type attribute. A type attribute, not a class selector or ID selector. Is a class selector. So it now has all this. This thing is giving me issues. Why is it working like this? But anyways, so let's move on. The next thing we are going to do is for example, you can go to a website and you're asked to choose your gender. You would see what we call a radio button. This is the way it's done. We have our div, and then we have let me use a label that has select gender, right? And then we are going to have input. So here now we have inside here we are going to have a check box instead. We're going to have a checkbox. Let me give this a title of gender, right? Whatever. Or give it a name of gender. Oh, okay. Let's say name, gender. Okay, so this one is going to have male, and I'll duplicate this, and female. So if we go back to this point, we're going to see not checkbox, I mean radio. Checkboxes are different. Radio. Checkboxes is when you want to agree to something. Do you agree to our terms and conditions? Do you agree to this? You tick yes, or tick this if you understand. So that's where checkboxes are used. So this one, let me give this. If you click on mail, you can only select one at a time. This is how checkboxes work. You're either male or female, or for other people they can be mixed, because some people are no longer male or female, they can identify as anything. So you can probably give them what they identify as and say others, so that we don't leave them out. So we go back and reload, and this is how it works. This is input. Let me style this. C, and with type radio. If that's the right way to write it. With, what am I doing? 10% or 20 pages. I think I did not do this thing well. Let's see. Did I do it well? I didn't. There's something I'm not getting right here. Is this supposed to be this way? And let's get rid of this and this. It's still wrong. I will go through this thing and make the corrections. But I just wanted to like put this thing on the same line. Let's leave it like that for now. I'll go through it and get back to that particular one. You guys should remind me in the next class. Alright, so you can select just one out of this one. And the reason why you can select it is because they share something in common. What do they share in common? This name. If I get rid of this name now and I probably say here female, right? And I say here as male and leave the other one as gender. Reload this page. You can tick the three of them at the same time because their name is the same. One thing about radio is that whichever one that shares the same name as it, you can't select both at the same time. Do you understand what I just said?
No.
You don't? Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Here, if you see this type here, all of them share radio, right? And all of them have different names. This one has a female gender, this one has male name, and this one has gender as its name. So that means they are all pointing to different things, so I can select them at the same time. For me not to be able to select these things simultaneously, they must share the same name.
Okay.
Do you understand? Their names must be the same. So if I go back and reload this and click on this, you can only select one at a time. But once this name changes to something else, probably you give this one a different name and give this one a different name, you can select the three of them at the same time, which is not ideal. Because when you're using radio boxes, you're supposed to either give a yes or a no answer, a male or female gender, or just the opposite. That's where we use this one. So the next thing we're going to talk about is checkboxes. Checkboxes work this way. Same way as that, and we're going to say input. The input type is going to be checkbox, right? And I'm going to have this title as it's giving me issue. I'm going to say input. So the message I'm going to have here is agree to terms and
and condition.
condition, right? So if we go back here, this is how a checkbox looks like. This is really looking disarranged. This is supposed to be here, probably because of this style. Let me remove this style and see what I did. Okay, so this is how it looks like. Can you see it? This is how it's supposed to look like. This is male, female, and others. This is a checkbox, right? So this is how it looks like. Are you following? What I just did was I got rid of this width from the input because it's messing up a couple of things here. Can you guys follow?
Yes.
All right. So the next one, which is almost the last, because I'm watching a bit, is going to be what we call the text area. That text area is where you can write multiple things. What's this one? What does it require? It has no title. Okay, let's add a title to it. Title and text area, or name, anything. All right, this text area. So if I go back here, this is how a text area appears. This is how a text area looks like. So you can write as many things as you want inside the text area. This is where you can use to comment, do anything, right? This is what a text area looks like. You can be asked to add your bio, add your whatever. So let's go and add something there. Here I'm going to say label, add bio.
Description.
Okay, I can also give it a placeholder. Description. Anything. So you can have both a placeholder and a you can have a placeholder and also a label. So yeah, let me go back and change this back to 100%, and we are back. So this is how it looks like. So this description, let me style this a bit. Let me get rid of the label because okay, let's go back and work on our, or let me just select it. What did I do? Select it. If you want to select a particular line, all you have to do is place your cursor there and press Ctrl C. You mustn't highlight it this way. If you want to select this entire line, all you have to do is place your cursor as it's blinking, Ctrl C, and then you paste it, Ctrl V, right?
Yes.
So here we want to work on text area. So I'm going to give this text area a width of 100%, and I'm going to give it a height of 100 pixels. Let's go back and see. So see how it looks like now. Now has a height and this. Okay, so this is what we have. Let me get rid of this and add labels here. Let me add a label to this one and get rid of the placeholder. Phone number. number. Here I'm going to have another label with the name of password. Then I can go back and load this. This is how it looks like. Doesn't look that bad. Okay, probably the other one was better.
But
100%. Alright, so let's use this like this. So this is basically how forms are made, but in this one you can see that the edges are curved and it's not very dark like our own here. This is very dark and our own is a bit edgy. So in the input, I can hear you. You can mute yourself if you want to talk. Mute your speaker. So in the input, I'm going to have a border radius of 10 pixels. If I go back, you can see that it now has all the inputs, not select this time, but all the inputs now have border radius of 10 pixels. And I don't like how dark the border is, so I can say border of 1 pixel solid. What color will I use now? That
peach.
is I want something that is close to this color. So if I
White
go back,
smoke.
okay, white smoke, would that be, let's see, okay, let's see, okay, it's a bit too faint. Let's probably choose somewhere around here. So this is another way to write colors. We'll still talk about them. So okay, this one seems a bit better. This border radius is a bit too much, so we'll change it to probably 5 pixels, and it looks a bit closer to this one now. So this is basically how it is. So we are going to talk about the assignment part, right? Do you have any questions, so that I'll know if I will go to the next thing? Do you have any questions, anywhere you're confused, anything at all? Do you have any questions? If you have
I
questions, ask. Oh. Hmm?
question like if I'm practicing now
Yes.
and I have any problem, can
Mm.
I ask you privately?
Yes, you can. Anytime you can. Yes, you can. Please feel free to ask anything. And I'll really love it if you guys can go extra miles to check things online, go through the assignments, because day of reckoning is coming. No, you guys are going to teach everybody like online, just the way I'm sharing my screen and explaining things. You explain your assignments, how you're able to do it, we make corrections. So instead of sending it to me privately, you would explain your
Organize a
assignment.
meeting.
Yeah, I can choose a day. We'll not have a class. You're just going to explain assignments, and then we'll make corrections so that all of us can learn together. Do you understand?
Okay.
Yeah. So that's basically it. Now we're going to go to this website. So this is the website you're going to recreate. And I know somebody will be shouting blood of Jesus.
Blood of Jesus.
Blood of Jesus. You don't need to shout. This is basically what we've done now. If I go back now and say, let me do this thing now, this one was done with label, and this one has a placeholder, right? So it has both
Yeah.
the label and a placeholder. This one you can use a paragraph to add it. This one is with a H or heading tag. This is a picture. You already know how to add images. You add the image
Yes.
and center it. Change the background. Okay, let me say this body now. I give our body, our own body. I say I want it to have a background color of
Oh,
blue, though their blue is not
blue.
that bright. So let me make ours a bit darker or something like this. I think this one is closer to theirs. And if I go back to our own now and reload, you see that it's like this. It's blue. I'll have to change
Yes.
this border, change the text. I'll say color. Color will be hash FFF or white. Just say hash FFF. Hash FFF is white. Just like hash 000 is black. So you see that is it's now this way. And I can say this for this the form that is carrying it. I want this form to be not the form box this time, but the form itself. Let me copy this line C, V, and then form. You guys know where this form is coming from, Abby? Do you? Do you know where I'm getting this form from?
From the
If
label.
okay, from the HTML. This is container, which is this one. This is a form box and this is the form. If you go back to your index.html, we have the container, the form box, and the form. Do you understand? If I want to select this
Yeah.
h3 now, instead of just writing h3 like I did, I can say dot container dot form box and h3. This one are the classes and this is the type selector.
Hello.
What is it?
I will make something.
So this is what we have. This thing is giving me serious problems. Why is this thing extending more than? Okay, let me give this a width of 100%. Of 100%. Okay, let's get rid of this width. It's still like that. Why am I having issues like this with this thing? Alright, get rid of this color first. X. Get rid of this width. Let me get rid of this input width for now. Oh God, I don't like how this thing is looking. Okay. This form. Okay, let's give this a width of 90%. Okay, give this select also a width of 90%. And then a shorter. And then give the form a padding of 10 pixels.
Pixels.
Okay. Text area as well, we'll give it a width of probably 95% and give this a width of 95%. I'll go through this stuff again and know why my input is messing up. Okay, so this is what it looks like now. Okay, let's go back to Facebook. That is a bit curved, or this one is curved, so we can give this form a border border radius of probably 7 pixels. And then if we go back to our forms, you see that it's a bit curved, even though it's not very noticeable. Let's increase it to 10 pixels. And then the padding, I want it to be more, so I'll give it 20 pixels. And then go back. This HTML forms, I'll give it a color of #FFF, and then it's now white. So this is almost a replica, not exactly the same. Let me get rid of border this border here. I don't think we need it so much. Here is black. Where did I add a border of black? Okay, it's in the container. Oh, I messed up. Okay, I've seen where the problem is. I've seen why my this thing is misbehaving. It's from the container. Give it a rigid width. That's why it's misbehaving. Okay, but so now this is how it looks like. So this is how our form looks like. It might not be exactly the same thing, but it's close. So you already know how to add a background color, right? So you can add
Yes.
background color to the input. So this input now I can decide to give it a background color. Background color of gray. Even though gray is too dark, let's look for something brighter. And then it's like this, and then I'll get rid of this border. I'll say border none, none. And then if I go back, you see, this is what we now have, which is close to this. Can you see it now? So this is going to be your assignment. Go through it and add. Okay, something else here, they have a select button, though this one is an updated type of select. It's called a select 2, but that's for JavaScript and CSS. Extra things were added, but just use the normal select that we have. So this is, you can add this using a submit button. This create account, probably we go back to this point, a div, right? And then I'm going to have input, and I'm going to have title. I'm coming, um, input, and here I'm going to have type will be submit. I'm going to say submit, or it's going to even come with submit itself, I think. So let me reload this page. It has to submit, so this one doesn't need to be there. If I reload this, it comes with its own submit. Can you see it?
Yes.
So this is
How do we make it
be blue in color. How do you give it this blue? What's your question?
text?
Hmm?
The text.
The text.
Yes, if you put another text,
Okay. So this one is for submit, but here I think they used what we call a button element instead of a submit element. So I can come down to this place, add a div, and say button, right? And then I'm going to say create account, right? And then if I want to style it, I can give it a class name of btn, button. That's short for button. What's wrong here? button attribute, type attribute has not been set. So I'll say type. The type will be submit. Though this one, this submit here is for, it's for server side. This type is for server side. You won't really see any change with this one online, or like in this form. So if you reload, this is how this button looks like. You have a create account, so we can now style it using this class name of button. Go to index.css and say dot btn, and I would say background color first of all will be blue. blue I don't like this shade of blue. Let's say something like this, and then go to, the color will be hash fff, which is white. If we go back, you see that it's like this. So next thing we are going to say, I don't want the border anymore, because this border, see how it's looking. Can you see this edge? It's not looking very nice. So we can give it border of none, and when you reload it, it has no border. Now we're going to give it a padding of 10 pixels, and then give it a width of 100, okay, 95%. Are you guys still there? Oh, my class ended. Can I invite another and Clinton? Okay. Share my screen. All right, so let me just round up, because our the first class has already ended. Can you hear me?
Yes.
So let me just round up. So I'm trying to make this button look better. I'll just give it a border radius of 5 pixels. Okay, increase the padding to 15 pixels, and that is it. So I've given you an insight, not border radius. Alright, I've given you an insight on how to go about your assignment. Do you have any questions?
No. If you have any question, ask me.
Alright, so that should be the end of the class. I would the assignment is on this is already in the form. What is it called? It's already here on this stuff I sent you guys, the MS Word I sent you via email. So if you go check the one I sent you, you see the updated file. So whenever we end our classes, you can check and you see that it has been updated. This is the place to find it. So if you click on this link here, it's going to take you to their website.
Okay, okay.
It will redirect you to this website. So once you click on it, you have access to this page. So this is what you guys will be creating for your next class. So that should be it. Sorry guys that we had to.
Okay, Auntie,
Yes.
but that's their link.
Mm.
You can copy it and then paste it like this.
Yes, you can actually copy it this way, right? Control
Okay,
C and
okay.
then go to your browser and paste it, right? And then it will still take you to so you either click it from from this MS Word page, or you copy the
Okay.
link and paste it, whichever one works for you. So do my assignment too, because the day we're going to check it will be coming. I think probably on next week Wednesday, because on Monday I would like to revisit these HTML
Everything.
selectors, yes, and go through it again before we go through the assignments. Alright, so that'll be all for
When are
today.
we going to start JavaScript?
You still have a long way to JavaScript. Learn these ones first. Once we are done with HTML and CSS, you get to JavaScript. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Alright, good night. You can
Good
log
night.
off.